Hello, and thank you for joining me. Today we're going to talk about my translation project work for quarter 4 of 2020. And I want to wish everyone a happy 2021. Congratulations on having made it through 2020. Not everyone was so lucky, unfortunately. I did not do, I didn't accomplish, I guess, quite as much as I was hoping I would have accomplished in this 3-month period. I know last quarter I did do a lot of scripted dumping, however, which does tend to inflate the perceived, amount accomplished, because, scripts aren't necessarily very time consuming to dump. If I manage to find games that it's pretty straightforward to dump scripts from, I can do quite a few of them, and I think that made my output last quarter look a little bit inflated in comparison to this one. But I did accomplish some things, so let's talk about those. For starters, I did dump a script for a Famicom adventure game called Masuzoe Yoichi Asamade Famicom. Now, this is really interesting, just sort of product of its time. It's basically based on a Japanese businessman who has since turned politician. He is actually the governor of Tokyo, Masuzoe Yoichi. And the game has become a bit collectible and kind of pricey since then, I believe. But when it was initially released, I don't think it was especially, well reviewed or anything like that. It's, to quote an article on Japan Trends, they say it's an intra-office text adventure game. The player is put in the shoes of a businessman who has to instruct his secretary, give phone calls, act favorably to his peers, gain the favor of his boss, and finally find out about the company's factions. So it's very much about the culture, sort of the business culture of 80s Japan, that's in hindsight here, like a really interesting thing to have an adventure game about at this point. So it actually has a lot of kanji to it. Kanji is not typically used in Famicom games, but it is used in some of them. This one in particular, I don't remember exactly how many kanji it had, but it was a lot, 700-800, something like that anyway. And, IDing that, I did use OCR technology to help with that, but it was still rather tedious, and I just kind of picked away at it over a number of weeks. But I was pretty proud of having just been able to finish that up, identify all the text in the ROM, and go ahead and dump a script for that. It did have some kanji that don't appear in JWPCE's JIS kanji set, so I did have to switch to using Unicode. I ended up using my dumping script to dump it and things like that. I actually did look over it afterward and found that I had misidentified one kanji, so I had to redump it after doing that. But hopefully at this point the whole script is accurate and it is all dumped. It's about 250k, so kind of like that adventure game that we dumped for the PC Engine. Similar in size, that also had kanji in it. I am looking for scans of the manual for the game. I did notice that there are a lot of character names, and the character names are in kanji. What that means is that the pronunciation of them is not, embedded in the text itself. You basically just need to know how to pronounce those kanji. And some of them have multiple pronunciations as names, so I would like to confirm if there are pronunciations like in hiragana for the names that are in kanji, perhaps in the manual of the game. Unfortunately, it is actually a rather collectible and expensive game now, so I can't just go and buy a copy of it for $20 or something like that. So if anyone out there has access to the manual and could photograph or scan it for me, that would be great. Or if you know where to find that on the internet, it would really help me out. Next up, there are some released translation projects that I am associated with directly or tangentially that I can talk about during this 3-month period. One of those is Super Shell Monsters Story 2. This was released, I guess, in early November of 2020. Dynamic Designs released this patch to the public. I am credited in this release for some translation support. Again, this is one of those things, maybe it was just kind of a nicety. Probably I did a little bit of, something on this project, but it's nothing that I really remember. I think the project's been kicking around for quite some time, though. As Bongo has retired from Dynamic Designs, this is another release that is sort of released as is. It's technically unfinished. It is fully playable, but there are like a couple of bugs that you might run into, and just a couple like little things about it that probably would have been fixed otherwise. But it was released as is, a classic turn-based RPG and a true sequel to Super Shell Monsters Story. Very similar graphics and gameplay style as the Dragon Quest games. So it seems like a cool RPG for RPG fans. There was a little bit of controversy around some of the translation of the first game, but I haven't heard any controversy around this release so far. It just seems like a cool game. It seems like people that have played the games, in good faith, are pretty big fans of the games. So I haven't played it, but it seems like a fun little RPG for folks that like, classic retro RPGs on the Super Nintendo. Check this one out. It looks pretty sweet. I do want to congratulate everyone at Dynamic Designs for this release. Like I said, I don't really know what the future holds for Dynamic Designs now, or if there are really going to be many more releases, but I'm very happy to see Aretha 2 and now Super Shell Monsters Story 2 being released to the public. So that's great. Next up, I messed around with dumping a script for Roku Denashi Blues on the Famicom. Yeah, so Wikipedia says that it's literally translated as Good for Nothing Blues. So a Japanese boxing themed manga series. So it sounds like maybe there was not an anime. Oh no, there was an anime film, maybe a couple of them, a live action film, and a television drama based on it. So it seems like there's quite a bit of media around it. There's more than one game. Also, there's a game on the Famicom, and I believe there's also a game on the Super Famicom. It seems like some of the characters actually appear on some of the Jump, like All-Stars games too. Like there's one on the DS that has characters from it. So anyway, so Shonen Jump, it was serialized in that. So definitely a very popular, of course, manga serial. And so you basically the plot stars Tyson Maeda, a delinquent student of Teiken High School who wishes to become the world boxing champion. The manga follows Maeda and his friends and rivals as he struggles through 3 years of high school while becoming one of the strongest and best known high school fighters in all of Tokyo. So that seems like a pretty cool premise for a story. The game also includes some kanji to it. And it seems to be kind of, I don't really know, some sort of like adventure / RPG, kind of RPG adventure game. Now, I did dump a script for this game, and it's about 163K. So it's definitely smaller than that Masuzoi Yoichi game, or the game on the PC Engine that I cannot remember the name of, but it's still sizable. Unfortunately, I ran into an issue where the way that I tried to identify the kanji in this game is to basically go through the bytes that would represent the kanji in the game, as I understand it, and just print them to the screen in like one of the first text boxes in the game, which normally is going to let you identify all of the the bytes and like what kanji they represent. But unfortunately, it seems like the way this game works is the kanji that they've loaded into memory, at that point in the game, when you trigger them with different bytes, it's just sort of loading like it seems like the same set of a handful of kanji. Because I noticed that was weird, like a lot of these same kanji kept coming up, but I just figured, well, that's just how the game handles the kanji. But unfortunately, like it must load different kanji at other points in the game, and so it's not really that it's reusing bytes. I think it's just maybe there's like a limited amount of space that it's pulling kanji into the RAM for, or something like that. So what I ended up doing is actually just watching through a playthrough of the game. It's like a speed run on Nico Nico, and just trying to compare the text that I was seeing come up there, and it's all just the characters' names as far as I can tell. It seems like the kanji is really just used for character names. So I'm trying to ID, and unfortunately it's tough because like there's a character name display that comes up. To basically it's tagged at the beginning of characters' lines, like right when they first start speaking. It's like Joe is speaking his lines, and so there's a particular 2 bytes that come up to represent Joe. But then if Joe's name is referenced during the dialogue, it's the same kanji, but it's going to be 4 bytes, and each kanji is going to have its own 2 bytes, and it's separate. So there's 2 ways in which these characters' names can come up, and so I'm basically having to watch through the footage of the game and like identify both instances, both ways that characters' names come up. It's very tedious. It's possibly prone to errors. Basically, it's relying on the fact that I'm able to find footage of literally every single character's name come up in the game, like that. I don't end up missing one or something like that. So it's not ideal. It's pretty messy. I don't know if I'm going to be able to identify all of the kanji properly that way. I'm hoping that I will, though. I did work on that for a while, and then I got kind of burnt out on it. So hopefully I come back to that. I would like to finish this up and have a full, accurate script dumped for this, because I think that would be a cool game to have a script for. But I'm kind of work in progress on that right now. Next up, translation work, that's probably the biggest thing I'm disappointed with. Certainly I've dumped a lot of scripts this year, but one thing is release translation projects. I think at the beginning of the year I was only really associated with 2 release translation projects, and here at the end of the year there's another 2, sort of possibly with 1 honorable mention here at the end of the year. So that I really don't feel like that's so bad, sort of, to at least be credited in 4 releases this year. I think is not it's not bad at all. But there were translation projects I wanted to finish up. One of those is TM Network. I even spoke to Pennywise not so long ago. He had expressed some interest in that game, and I was basically like, oh yeah, it's basically done. I just sort of need to write out the first draft. I don't know, man. I started writing it out, and it felt like just translating it from scratch practically. I mean, it isn't. I had put a lot of translations into my translation memory, but I don't know if it was just that I kind of skipped the first quarter or third of the game, or I just, it's just not as complete as I was hoping. It feels like I'm just translating it right from the start practically. It's more than I was expecting. So anyway, I've translated about 1/3 of that, actually writing out all of the stuff. That's written and done, so that's good. But it means I still have 2/3 of the script to write out, and it's not a small script. in actual bytes it's 150k, so I think pretty similar to that Rokudenashi Blues. That's not insignificant amount of text, and I'm chugging my way through it, but I expected to have it done by the end of this year, easily, and I did not. So that's disappointing for me, but I would like to finish that up and get that specifically to Pennywise, and hopefully have that released in 2021. It's a fun adventure game that I've enjoyed dumping a script for and translating the script, despite it being a little being a little burnt out on it at this point. I also dumped a script on request, and I apologize, I forgot to check who requested it, but somebody on Twitter had requested a script dump for Legend on the Game Boy. I know nothing about it. I think it's some type of RPG, but I was like, yeah, I can look at it, and I figured out the text encoding and found the text in the ROM and dumped a script for that. So that wasn't exactly hard. It did take me, it was like more than an evening, I think, but it was like an evening and then the next day. It has a dictionary in it, so I did have to put that stuff in the table file, and it's got like a number of blocks of text, probably a good 15 blocks of text or so. So I think let's see, I ended up dumping that with my dumping script, so I also had to kind of prep it for that and put it in there. But I ended up with a nice script dump for it. It's 79k. So yeah, I don't know if they're gonna do anything with that, but I guess the dumped script for Legend on the Game Boy is out there in the wild. I also dumped a script for Cadillac on the Famicom. I did do a whole video about this. Cadillac is like a kind of a falling blocks puzzle game, but utilizing playing cards as the falling blocks, and so then you kind of have to match the playing cards up, I think, into poker hands and things like that. It's sort of like a cross between Solitaire and Tetris or something. I think it's a really great premise, really great idea for a puzzle game. I don't know how much fun it is to play, but I noticed there was just a little bit of text to it, just a little bit of kind of dialogue story text to it, so I did find and dump that. And in that video I mentioned that it had kind of inspired me to update my table helper script in order to basically dump out to print out to the screen when your diacritics, when you have a separate character for the diacritics to go ahead and print out all of the Doc 10 and Han Doc 10 characters to the screen. If you want to know more about what that all means, just check out my previous video to this one. In terms of the size of that, let's see here. Cadillac is it's gonna be small, right? It's a 4K script, so there's not much to that. Probably it's the kind of thing I should just sit down and translate tonight, right? Because it's 4K, it's not going to take too long. It's probably not complicated text either. It's probably just here's some instructions on how to play the game and just some little flavor text, so it's probably pretty easy. So another actual released project that I'm actually credited on that came out this quarter, Vandal Hearts A. I guess it's the first time that Vandal Hearts has been translated for the Sega Saturn, I believe. Maybe don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that what we're seeing is Vandal Hearts having had an official release in English on the PlayStation, but I don't think it ever had an official release in English for the Saturn. So let's take a look here and see who all worked on that. So this project was, I guess, initiated by Paul Met. They've been around romhacking.net for quite a long time. They seem to be very skilled at and interested in doing sort of widescreen resolution hacks and things like that for Saturn and PlayStation games and that type of thing. So very interesting in that respect. They did some hacking, coordinating, designing on this game, on this this patch, this unofficial translation patch. Pennywise did testing, editing, and coordinating as well. The Majin Zenki, and Crod Kenny, Aisha, and myself did some translation review. I guess Aisha also did some hardware testing. So yeah, I think I'd mentioned this maybe in my last video that I didn't maybe contribute to this as much as I had been planning, but I am credited on this. Looks like they probably used some of my work, and I did complete some of the translation review and get that back. So basically the translation was based on the actual official translation from the PlayStation, but these 4 other translators basically reviewed all of that text against the original Japanese, and I'm assuming made a lot of changes to kind of bring it back in line a little more literally with the original Japanese. Not to say that that is kind of like the right way to do it, or that professional translators don't translate literally enough or anything like that. It's just one of those things where I think the people working on this kind of wanted to just take a second look at it, and maybe had took some issue with some of the things, the ways that the translation was handled for the PlayStation version, and wanted to just do a fresh look at it for the Saturn version. So that is an alternate translation that you guys can check out. I would really recommend you guys take a look at it, because it sounds like they did a really good job. They also did a lot of technical work on this. They added a variable width font, and some different resolution support and things like that. So I think it's a very cool release, especially if you guys are familiar with Vandal Hearts. You might want to check it out. So another release that I was not really related to at all, right? But I really want to mention it because it is that group of translators that I've worked with. So you have Supper, the Majin Zenki, CCC Mar. Let me see who else actually worked specifically on this. Yeah, that was it, I guess. So that was the team on Mado Monogatari 1 Hono no Sotsuenji. So this is translated as Sorcery Saga 1, the Fiery Kindergarten Graduation. And just another port of Sorcery Saga 1 to the PC Engine CD, in this case, also known as the TurboGrafx here in North America. It would have been for the TurboGrafx CD had it officially come out. So that marks, I don't know how many. I mean, it's like maybe all of the console ports of Mado Monogatari games have been fan translated at this point now. I could be wrong, but the Super Famicom game had been done by Ann Genesis, and then myself and Steve Seahorn worked on the first Game Gear game, and then of course Supper and the Majin Zenki and CCC Mar then worked on the second, third games on the Game Gear, and Supper and myself worked on the fourth game on the Game Gear, and then Supper and those guys worked on the version on the Mega Drive, and now the PC Engine CD. So actually, now that I think of it, there are some Game Boy games, and there's spin-offs, there's other stuff, but anyway, at least in terms of Mado Monogatari 1, I think all the bases are covered. So just excited to see that. Looks like a really great release. Looks like another just from a technical and translation standpoint, it looks like it was really well done. There is like a little review that someone wrote. They said, it's been 3,000 years. Ever since I found the Mado Monogatari Sorcery Saga series, I've wanted this version in particular of Sorcery Saga 1 to have a translation. It's the 100% best version. Disclaimer, according to Dark Link 1996 here. The quality of the translation is acceptable. That's not exactly I think they could have been a little more generous with their praise, but you know, I haven't played the game. And the choice in font is very fitting for young Arl's adventure. It also makes me happy to see that the Sorcery Saga title has been near universally accepted by the translation community. So yeah, you know, very cool. They definitely recommend the patch. Yeah, so it's really nice to see a review of that so soon after release. And yeah, just really cool looking release. So congrats very much to those guys. Yeah, I guess finally here, I just wanted to mention that Miho Nakayama's Tokimeki High School has seen some progress and another update here just before the new year. If I go to the forum, I had made a thread on romhacking.net way back in March of 2017. I was talking about this game and, you know, how I'd been messing around with it a little bit, kind of chronicled some of the work that I'd done on it, and we're fast forwarding here to the very end of 2020, and FC and Chill just made an update. I think it was on December 28th, just saying, hey, you know, here's kind of, you know, I'm still working on this, and, you know, showed off some screenshots. They basically said over the past 2 years they've been polishing up their ROM hacking skills. They created a better dumper and inserter for this game. They had learned 6502 assembly and how to use the debugging features of FCEUX, and how to use XCAS. I don't really know what that is, but I've heard it before. I think it's a utility that's used in sort of ROM hacking circles. He said that he's switched to using Messen emulator because it uses IPS patches for save files for the Famicom disk system. That's a little specific to there, but Pennywise is pretty knowledgeable. I think Pennywise and King Mike in particular about the Famicom disk system. So he said he took some inspiration from Pennywise's Dead Zone to rework the compression and get all the text in there, which is fantastic, because that was one of the big stumbling blocks where I really wanted this script to not get overly condensed and truncated. So he said that he's actually sort of going through my script and even like letting it be a little bit more verbose if that if that helps the story and the text to sort of breathe and live and just be more natural. So he's going to give me a chance to look that over before we release it. But I'm really excited to see this update, because that might mean that here in 2021, maybe even early 2021, I don't know, it might finally be the year of Miho Nakayama's Tokimeki High School, the Famicom Disk System version. I mean, that's the only version that they made. Being available with an English patch. So I think that would be great. In terms of, I don't know, the rest of this year, I mean, I guess kind of like last year, I don't want to make big, claims of my goals. Like last year, I didn't even meet the goals that I did state. I mean, the released projects that I had said were going to be released were released, right? So that was good. Aretha 2 did come out. I forget what else it was early in the year that came out, but there was a release. Madame Monogatari A, that came out. Sorcery Saga A, so that was great. I wanted to finish up on Team Innocent. I haven't done that. I wanted to finish up on TM Network. I haven't done that. I wanted to finish up on Magic Knight Rayearth 2. That I feel sort of particularly guilty about, but I did burn out on it, and I'm a good way through that, but I just need to get back to it. In terms of 2021, I guess it's the same stuff. Like, I want to get Magic Knight Rayearth 2 done. I want to get TM Network done, and beyond that, I think it's just going to be like what I feel like, right? I want to be less on the hook to other people. At this point, I want to just sort of take a step back and just play around with things that I want to do. I did post a help wanted ad in the forum for, like, there are projects that I have my part done, right? Like the translation is done, and I'd like to try to get help technical help with those, kind of like what's happening with Tokimeki, Miho Nakayama's Tokimeki High School. I've been done with that for years, basically. There's nothing much else I can do on it other than maybe playtest the game or something. Someone needs to do the hacking work on that. And similarly with Kaito Saint Tail, or Mysterious Thief Saint Tail for the Game Gear, I posted a help wanted ad on the forum. I'm hoping that someone will just pick that up and get through the hacking on that. The script is not especially big, but there's a handful of those Game Gear games that I've finished a script for. It's all translated, and somebody just needs to do the technical work on it. And unfortunately, I think the technical work tends to be about as complicated per game, no matter how big the script is, right? Whereas the translation work, that actually makes a big difference. A small script is going to be way easier. A large script is going to be way harder. Other projects that I have ready to go is like Frey on the Game Gear. Nazo Puyo, Arl no Ro, Kunichan no Game Tengoku is ready to go. But anyway, there's a handful of games that I've translated the scripts for, and they're just ready to be, have the technical work done on them. So I don't want to flood the help wanted ads necessarily with ads right now. What I'm hoping is maybe I can find someone who does the work on Saint Tail, and then is kind of interested in maybe doing another Game Gear project. But several people have worked with me on Game Gear projects in the past. Cyclax, Supper, things like that. I apologize if I'm forgetting anyone. But and there are people that I think might be open to working on the system that I actually am in contact with. But I kind of want to put it out there to the community and just see who bites on that. If it's people I've worked with already, that's awesome. If it's people I haven't, that's awesome too. I just want someone who actually wants to, is just like, hey, in 2021, let's get that Saint Tail game, finished up. Let's get Nazo Puyo finished up. Let's get Kunichan no Game Tengoku or Frey or something finished up. So yeah, that's all. Thanks for joining me. Again, I hope you guys have a good year. I think it's going to be hard for me. I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people. So hang in there, all right? And I'll try to check back in a few months here. Hopefully I've gotten some more good work done. Take care, guys.